You guys remember this same Department of War secretary when he kicked all reputable media members out of the Pentagon because they asked too many questions? Here's a presidential ad from the Pentagon to show off who it is that's replaced real journalists in these briefings.
Welcome all of you here to the Pentagon briefing room as official new members of the Pentagon Press Corps. This is the beginning of a new era. We look forward to working with you to keep the American people informed and to ensure transparency.
So the Department of War, underneath this presentation, president who's all about PR and thinks that everything that they put out there with jazzy music and exciting building, pressured drums, makes things suddenly okay. So you got all those incompetent people in the Department of War press briefings now, and because they put out some weird promotional ad, people are supposed to just, start accepting it now. It's weird because Don Bacon, another Republican who's got a couple more instances of speaking out against this president. It started all with Russia, but now he's a little bit he's queasy on Pete Hegseth too. He doesn't like how this whole thing is going on, and even mentioned this problem with these fake ass reporters in the room.
Well, I've been on the record already. After Signalgate, I think I've seen enough. What I really wanted to see was someone take responsibility. What I've seen is what I call just a poor decision making. So, for example, not taking responsibility in Signalgate, but his rules on the media, where now you have a bunch of second-rate journalists operating out of the Pentagon, but all of the Fox and New York Times, Washington Post, they're all outside of the Pentagon. And then we have rules that we have military bases in our districts. They're not allowed to talk to us because of his orders to them not to talk to anybody in Congress unless the actual questions have been vetted through the Pentagon first. So there's a series of decision making here that really bothers me.
It bothers Don Bacon that this series of decision making where they're kicking real folks out of the room that may ask questions and then sending it to these folks who are willing to just carry the water and regurgitate whatever it is that they tell them. It's a little bit concerning considering we're talking about going to war down in Venezuela, considering he keeps talking about how he's ending wars that, keep fighting, but we don't get those real answers because the folks in the room, the folks that have been replaced in the room, this is who Pete Hegseth and whoever this lady is that's running these press briefings. Maybe I should have got a name. Apologies for that. This is the type of thing that they're pushing. Now, this question was about what we were just talking about with this double tap and the potential war crime that Pete Hegseth is pulling off that was originally reported by the Washington Post. So this is like from a week ago, right at the beginning of this, when they were denying that any of it ever happened. Look at this great reporter here.
Does the Department of War plan on pursuing any sort of legal action against the Washington Post, and what consequences will there be for lying to the American people? Because, of course, the implication there was that Pete Hegseth and Admiral Bradley are war criminals, and that was the implication, and that's what a lot of people on social media were saying after the fact. So could you speak to that?
Yeah, it is frankly disgusting that the Washington Post would publish something that is so insanely false. And we've seen this from the mainstream media before, right? Anonymous sources that are being quoted that probably have no idea what's going on. And the Washington Post actually went so far as to falsely attribute a quote to the Secretary of War, that he never said. That is preposterous that they would write that and pass that off as true journalism. Thankfully, the New York Times stepped in and corrected the record and let the American people know that what they were publishing was absolutely fake news. So the Washington Post, I think readership should think twice before reading that outlet again. It is disgraceful that they call themselves journalists, and we told them as such, right? We get press queries like we do from all of you. We told them this story was completely fake news on Thanksgiving evening with a 3-hour deadline, and they still published it anyway. It's disgraceful, but thankfully the American people see through it.
To a room full of fake journalists, she decides to say, and we called them out and said, we don't appreciate fake journalism. The reality has to be flipped in order for them to continue down this same path. So, by the way, I wonder in the next press briefing if that same guy, his name is Wade Searle, by the way, Searle, if He's gonna then ask, "Yo, is the Pentagon gonna pull back on that threat to sue the Washington Post?" Considering right after that was all put out, they then admitted that they did have this double tap. When originally they said that was all fake news. At that time, it was all fake news. Isn't it weird how fake news, once the revelations come out and the proof continues to roll out after they've called it fake news? Isn't it weird how suddenly that we just forget that we even said all that stuff? I'm gonna show you how legitimate all these new reporters in these briefings are. Here's Wade Searle. He says the fake news is out. Life site news is in. So there he is standing at the podium at the Pentagon, the Department of War, as he also tagged there. This is why they're there. This is what gets them jazzed up. This is what the Pentagon and Pete Hegseth's department has put in place. A bunch of idiots like these guys to stand there and promote themselves as if they're badasses when what they are anti-American traitors who continue to push the same talking points that these guys want them to. It's, almost like fascism or something. This other guy, R.C. Maxwell, he's another one of the new journalists in there. The Pentagon cubicle that used to belong to Dan Lamothe is now mine. Out with the propagandists and the hacks, in with the truth tellers who love America. I feel like truth telling should be one of those things that, it doesn't qualify by whether or not you love America. In fact, telling the truth is what would make you love America. And when you follow behind everything these guys tell you to do, I feel like that doesn't really match up. Hey, here's more of these guys. This was literally what they're doing with their days. I can confirm the former Washington Post Pentagon desk is now the fearless media desk. Now they're sitting there chilling at their new cubicles. Don't they have some work to do? I mean, don't they have some questions to ask? No, they're getting fed questions and answers in the way that they should write it, all from the folks that they're in these rooms promoting and saying that they're now being the new journalists behind. Here's one of the more stark ones. Laura effing Loomer's in there. She says the Washington Post and Dan Lamothe, who apparently works at the Washington Post, used to occupy this desk inside the Pentagon press room. Now it's mine. And they all got together and said, let's all take stupid selfies and somehow think this makes us look cool as we sit in cubicles, as we ask very basic questions that are leading them into saying, we're going to sue the Washington Post for fake news when they're not suing the Washington Post for fake news. I wonder at some point, like, as Don Bacon in there pointed out how he's so frustrated with this whole thing, when are they going to do something? Are you going to join in Democrats and try to start impeaching these guys? Because you're troubled by it. This is the most probably troubling face you'll see in this press briefing rooms. And from that other video where Mr. Wade Searle was asking questions, maybe you saw maybe you saw Matt Gaetz peeking his face into the corner.
Describe the process the administration will use to determine whether or not current members of the Venezuelan military or Venezuelan government have a role in a post-Maduro Venezuela.
We all know what happened with old Matt Gaetz. He was supposed to be originally the attorney general and got run out of that confirmation from all those revelations about his dealings with 17-year-old girls. These are the folks that are in the room. I appreciate you, Don Bacon. Maybe we can, start talking about what to do about this now.